If you enjoy freedom and your right to fly drones in the United States, be sure to click like and subscribe on this video because we are currently updating you with all of the current legislation and possible drone bans in the United States. But today I wanted to give you a DJI alternative because you've probably seen on my channel recently there's a ton of legislation with the new NDAA Act that's trying to go through the Senate to try to ban DJI. So with that said, people are looking for alternatives, and I promised you that I would show you an alternative and many more alternatives on the channel, including some domestic ones. Now this one is the CaddxFpv Gofilm 20. It is a little 2-inch 4S Cinewhoop that can fly indoors or outdoors, and it flies with the Walksnail Goggles X. They are about $500, around the same price point as some of the newer DJI goggles, but this one is running on the Moonlight system, which records 4K at 60 frames per second down to a DVR. It also has SD card support, and this little quad can fly freestyle and it can fly cinema. So it has what we call on the channel duality. It can do the best of both worlds. So I want to show you now what this one's capable of indoors and outdoors. And unintentionally, I did a pretty hardcore durability test. As always, it seems like I'm pretty rough on things here on the channel. So if you're looking for a channel that kind of is rough and tumble with the drones that we review, I have no mercy on all the drones that we review. So we're gonna go fast and we're gonna crash hard. So let's start out with the house, then the backyard, and then I'll take it to the park for a really big hit to a tree. So stay tuned for the flight test. After that, we'll come back and we'll check out this DJI alternative from CaddxFpv Gofilm 20 on the channel today. Oh man, walk of shame. Let's see what happened, my friend. That's the tree that we hit. That's a big tree. Tried to do that dive down through here. I've done it 100 times. And I usually go right through the path right here by this tree, but I came a little bit left. So here, let's look at the quad. See what kind of damage. I mean, I smacked it hard. Because I was really trying to get back on the throttle to get back on the path right here and zoom around that way. So the frame is all still in one piece. That's crazy. I do see 2 motor bolts missing, one back here. So that tells me they need to be Loctited. So if you get one, make sure you go over the bolts and Loctite it. And then up front, my ND filter is fine. It didn't break, which is crazy. And I did break one prop. So one prop right there in the front broken in that crash. But I mean, if I'd have hit this tree, the same tree, look how thick that bark is. If I'd have hit this tree with a 5-inch, I definitely would have broken an arm or something. Because these trees are so freaking big. But that's crazy. I definitely thought I broke something on the frame. That's impressive that it didn't break anything on the frame. So why don't we walk back to the bench now and let's take a little closer look at this quad up front. Cut. Let's take a little closer look at this quad and I'll tell you what it's all about. All right, guys, welcome back from the flight test. This is the box that you get, and this is the Gofilm 20 from CaddxFpv. It is a 2-inch 4S FPV Cinewhoop drone with HD video on board, and they did give me this ND filter which slides right over top of the camera. If you're in some pretty kind of low light conditions, you can take that off and it'll open up the aperture a lot, and you'll be able to have a little bit brighter video, and it won't look so kind of underexposed. Now it does have inverted motors. It has the 2-inch props on there, and it is 115 grams. So once you add a battery weight to it, you still have 4K video on here and you're under 250 grams. My favorite battery to fly on it today was the Beta FPV 4S 750 milliamp battery, and that got me close to 10 minutes flight time if I was just cruising. If I was freestyling this battery, I was still getting close to 6.5 minutes flight time. The Gofilm by itself is $399, and you can get it in a combo with the Avatar X goggles for $829. And there are some benefits to the Avatar X versus the DJI Goggles 3, which I have here on my right. I think that these are a little more streamlined. They're a little more compact. They do have the 4 antennas up front. This one has built-in antennas as well as the external foldable antennas. But this one also has a large battery which fits on the head strap, which adds extra weight to your head. So if you're doing long photo shoots, this can get a little bit cumbersome. It is nice that the Avatar X goggles, you can run off of an external battery with an XT60 connector, because I like to put the extra weight in my pocket versus on my head. Just makes it a little nicer. And it does have a built-in fan. Firmware updates are available on this one by SD card, whereas this one works through the app to update the firmware. I'd like to see that Walksnail in the future has some kind of app to update the firmware on these, or possibly like a DJI Assistant type of software that you hook the USB cable up to and do their firmware update online. That would be super great. But for what they are at this point, they have come a long way. There's still some updates being done on this pair of goggles. They're not perfect by any means, but it is a great start and alternative to using DJI. And honestly, another nice point about the Avatar X goggles is the fact that they can be used with the other Avatar VTXs out there, versus the DJI Goggles 3 don't work, and they're not backwards compatible with the other O3 air units or the Caddx Vista, as well as the DJI O3. They only work with DJI O4 at this point, so we're still waiting for that update. Who knows if DJI will ever give us that. So we're kind of stuck to only flying the brand new drones on the Goggles 3. With these, again, you can use all of the different Avatar VTXs from Walksnail. And speaking of VTXs, on the bottom of the Gofilm 20 is where the Moonlight VTX is for 4K SD support, SD card support on this little VTX. So it is nice, 60 frames per second at 4K. Would I say it looks as good as the DJI O3? I would say it's comparable, but it's not quite as good as the DJI O3, if I were to be honest. but it is an alternative. And I mean, you got to give applause to a company who's trying to compete with DJI. So we have two antenna outs right here. We have the antennas that are going on a vertical mount here, side to side. We also have a receiver mount here, and I have an ELRS on this quad. Now on the other side over here, we have a bind button over here. So if you press this little tiny button right here with something like a bamboo skewer, and then you press the bind button on your goggles, which is right down inside this hole right here, it will start to bind, and after a few seconds you'll hear a beep, and then it will update and the light will go green, so you'll be bound up with this VTX. On the other side over here, we have SD card support, and we also have a harness plug there for an external USB-C cable right here, which is kind of cool. So this little tiny cable comes along with it, and this way you can do firmware updates on the VTX, and you can take files on and off of the DVR board. You can also, again, take it straight from the SD card to your computer. Now, it should be mentioned that we do have GyroFlow support on this Moonlight 4K video. So if you want to smooth things out a little further, you have control of that with the GyroFlow app on your computer, which is also super nice. Now, the flight controller on this little guy is the Super F405 HD version. So the HD system from Walksnail Caddx, the Moonlight just plugs right into the side of this. So if you need to kind of get in here and change things around, you can unplug the HD system and plug in a new one should you brown out this one. This one also has 20 amp 4-in-1 ESCs. And probably my favorite thing on this quad is the fact that this is a 2-inch quad on a 4S battery, and it runs beautifully on a 550 milliamp for FPV freestyle. If you want to do the long flights on this power system, again, like you can get 10 minutes on a 750 milliamp. I love the Beta FPV ones, and they perform great on these 1303 6000 kV brushless motors. They're 5.6 grams a piece, and they really scream when you want to do a little FPV freestyle. The coolest thing about it is the fact that it doesn't have tumble and it doesn't have washout like the DJI Avata. This thing will really, really rip when you have a big open field. It is very fast if you want to tilt this camera up to about 30 to 25 degrees. So, I mean, you know, some final thoughts about this quad. It performed better than I thought it did, because when I pulled this out of the box and I saw the weight of it, it is kind of an average weight, but I figured that this would be more of a Cinewhoop or something for cinema filming. What I didn't realize is that when I plugged in a 4S battery, even on the 2-inch tri-blade props, it really turned into a beast. So it's super fast, and it has probably a 10-to-1 power ratio. So I would say, all in all, I mean, they have a pretty good release here. It is probably about a 4.5 stars out of 5 if I was to rate it. I didn't have a lot of bad feelings about it. I feel like it flew great. It didn't have the tumble, or it didn't have any vibrations in the hardest turns and flips and things that I did with it. It did fly a little bit faster than some of the quads its size around the house, but that's because it's a 4S quad and not a 2S. If you want to slow this down for indoor real estate, you can take off the ND filter and you can run it on a 2S 550 or 650 milliamp, and that'll really slow it down. So bring this camera down to about level, and you will go super slow, and you'll be able to make those small gaps that you're looking for indoor real estate videos. So if you think this one was cool, you can check it out down in the link below to the CaddxFpv website. It is $399 by itself, and it's like $829 for the combo with the Goggles X. I think it's a decent alternative to DJI HD FPV systems, and you know, again, like, it's something specifically for those guys that are looking for an alternative to DJI. You gotta have some competition for DJI. So I appreciate you watching the channel. If you're into it, please do click subscribe and hit that like button for me so that the video doesn't get suppressed by the algorithm. And guys, take care. I will definitely see you on the next one.